guys. Welcome to anybody on Facebook. Welcome to you guys here. So here's the thing I'll just start off with is that these are going to be the last two trainings that I do in this formal setting in this way. I have no idea how Spirit will move us in the future, but starting group 9 here in August, the 22nd of August, I'll talk all about the format of what the training looks like more towards the end, but also to say that in January of 2025, I'm going to start group 10, and that'll be the last group that I start in this kind of in this deal, with all that I'm going to describe here. I don't know what's metamorphosis. I don't know what that means. You know, I've been teaching for 35 years, but you know, the school will be that'll be the 10th training. So, and trainings are however long they are, which I'll talk about as well, is that, so this has been, right now, we're 8 years in on the school. That'll be 10, we'll be 10, 11 years in.
Yeah.
And so then it'll be transforming into something else, which, as I said, I don't even know yet. So, welcome. And so what this is about is to kind of talk about like what the training is about, but why the training is the way it is a bit. And how the training has actually, well, it's evolved incredibly, even in these 8 years since I began, and it is, I have to say that it's so comprehensive in understanding the body, understanding the way the body actually works, and how we are a system, and really how do I interface with a system to help somebody get back to being healthy? It's not just, one of the dirty words for me is the F word, which is fix. So I hate that word, fix, because it isn't really what truly healing or healthy, moving towards health is about. It's not about fixing somebody. It is actually about you sort of reaching out a hand, helping their system to kind of find itself and actually find what healthy is for it. So anyway, in order to do that, in order to really understand how you're going to do that, you have to understand how the body works on a much bigger level than here's these muscles, I'm gonna work these muscles. Now there is nothing wrong with massage if that's what you want to do, is to relax somebody and have somebody feel better. I mean, I started that way, I totally get it. It's just like, what is my focus? What is my desire to do? So if it's something more therapeutic, and if it's something where I'm really trying to help people through something, then you need to understand things at a much, much, much bigger level, That's my belief, And right now you're in my room, so I get to say my belief. There you go. Okay.
Hello, welcome.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh, hi.
Come on in.
Good, pick anywhere. Pick anywhere. Are you really thinking about coming to school? I love that. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in a year or two. It's been a minute, exactly. So anyway, what I was saying to the other people here, and we're also on Facebook Live, to just reiterate that if you're really helping somebody back to health, it's a walk, and it's also an understanding the body in a bigger picture, in a much bigger way. And so I'm going to explain a few things here. We definitely have this, and let me say, this is what class is like. So classes, the first thing that happens in classes is that I'm doing a lecture of whatever the topic of that module is. So I'm doing a lecture, and then after that we begin to teach you the treatments and so forth, okay? So, all right, let me get this guy turned on. Okay, so there are many systems of the body, okay? So there's many systems of the body, and we're gonna focus, I don't know how many I got, 6 or 7, 8, whatever it is, that I actually teach about. So, there are other systems. People always pull one out of the hat of one that, of course, that we don't focus on. But the original one is musculoskeletal, and everybody thinks, ooh, body work, you've got to focus on the muscles. But the truth is that the muscles are a map of the symptoms. I got to say that again because that's huge, is that the pain you're experiencing in your muscles is a map to something else, okay? And through the 14 modules that we are teaching you not only how to do different treatments and so forth, but we are teaching you how to know what creates the pain patterns, you know. And if you'd all read the Facebook page, I don't know if you've been reading the Facebook, anybody's been reading the, you know, you can either do it with me, Lee Ankrum, or you can now go Ankrum School of Functional Bodywork, because I put it in both places, is I teach about what, you know, different parts of the body. This morning I did a whole thing on lungs, and when I wrote about the lungs, I also wrote about where's the pain pattern that's coming out of the lungs. Like, what could somebody be experiencing if they were having issues in their lungs, right? So this is, for me, the muscles are a map of the symptoms, okay? And then you learn how to work with them. Skeletally wise, there is a whole alignment piece, and we work through the whole structure of the body through the skeleton. I do not teach you how to do chiropractic adjustments, but I do teach you how they're supposed to function, what's wrong if something's out, how there are some treatments that you can do without doing chiropractic adjustments to put them back in. We teach you how to do something called muscle energy, which is working with tense and relax in the muscles in order to get the bones to go back into place. And there are certain things, there are different kinds of lines of gravity and things like that that you learn that are super important in order for someone also to your body is supposed to be working without effort, right? I'm supposed to be you know, you're supposed to be able to stand comfortably, sit comfortably, and your movement is actually supposed to be something that's effortless, right? Which is, I don't know that I've met anybody that way, you know. It's one of the things that we do in the first module is, in that first module, one little part of it is where we do body reading with each other. So everybody all congregate. You don't have to do it. Trust me. No, if somebody doesn't want to do it, they do not have to get up, okay? But if you want to, you get up, we kind of look at you and assess you and see what's going on with your body, and then we have you walk and we see, you know, and then you know what the interesting, fun thing is that then we look several modules down the line, do it again, and the changes in everybody is like pretty stunning, you know? It's very stunning.
It's pretty cool.
So anyway, it's pretty fun. Okay, so there's this musculoskeletal system. Okay, and then we're just showing you all sorts of the muscles here in the picture of the back and how it's layered, and there's lots of them. Okay, but bigger than muscles for us is fascia. Now fascia, okay, fascia has 3 layers in the body, okay? And as you can see, the close-up, it looks like a web. Fascia looks like this web. This is an even closer up deal of some part of it. And it actually looks liquid, doesn't it? So fascia is sort of semi-viscous. It's kind of liquid. There are 3 layers of fascia in the body. The superficial fascia is, if I could possibly peel my skin away all over my body, I'd still be there if that was possible, okay? And then the middle layer is, it's around everything. It's layered and layered and layered and layered and layered and creates the bowl inside my pelvis. It's all, like I have a superficial layer that's inside my thoracic cavity. I have a deeper layer that's around my lungs, and then a deeper layer that's around my lungs. There's like 3 layers here. There's the pericardium. That's that's fascia around your heart. The pleura is around your lungs. Periosteum is the layer that's around your bones. So everything in all your organs and everything in your body, there's only some nerves that don't have fascia on them. But other than that, everything is encased in fascia. Everything, okay? And then you have your deepest layer, which we'll show is in the craniosacral system. And here's the deal. This is semi-viscous, meaning that it's pretty fluid. And part of the reason why it's fluid, because you also have fascia around a muscle, okay? Actually, fascia, muscle is fascia, but we won't get into that. Way too much. Anyway, so it's around everything. And what's supposed to happen is that if it's correct, and say, you know, I have 2 muscles next to each other and one needs to go this, one's contracting this way, one's doing something else, they need to be able to slide separately. Because if they don't slide separately and they get stuck together, which is super common, they both do everything. So when I go to flex or something, both muscles are having to, because they've become one, okay? That's when you start to get into problems, is when things start to stick together and the dysfunction starts to happen and the lack of movement starts to come into play. So what happens when, say this fascia is around, what do you want it to be around? What do you want?
Kidney?
Kidney. So this is the fascia around the kidney. And my kidney's stressed for some crazy old reason. My kidney lives on my hip flexor. My kidneys live on my hip flexor. So what's going to happen is my kidney's going to stick to my hip flexor and turn my hip flexor off. My kidney turns my hip flexor off. That's a hip flexor muscle. And you'll learn, if you take the training, you'll learn all about it. And so if it turns that off, then what happens is I now have to recruit something else because your hip flexor is involved in walking. So it's the thing that helps to lift, it's the thing that starts to help to lift the leg when I go to take a step. So if it's not doing that because I had my kidney have some dehydration or some issue, then the fascia locks up the hip flexor. When that locks up, then what do I have to do? I have to recruit my quadratus lumborum to lift my leg when that's not what that's supposed to do. So now I'm going to have knee pain. So because my knee is inside the tendon of my quad, my 4 quad muscles. Do you see how you have to, in your mind, know the pathways? Because somebody comes in and they say to you guys online, they say to you is that I have knee pain. Okay. So I was riding my bike this morning and there was somebody riding a little bit ahead of me and I'm watching, I was on 36th Street and I'm watching this person is hardly pedaling. I'm like, why are they not pedaling? So every once in a while when they did pedal, the left leg went out like this. The left leg went out. Right? And I don't even know that they know that. And you use your hip flexor to ride your bike with. That's what you're supposed to do, is using your hip flexor and the inner leg muscles. So this guy is completely not have access to his hip flexor. Do you see this? And I figured that the reason why he's not solidly pedaling is because his back is probably killing him from having his leg do this all the time while he's riding. Not a good choice for him to do exercise-wise when he's in a place like that. But he doesn't know, I assume it's in him, because what woman would do that? But I assume it's in him, but I should not make assumptions, as my ex would say. Don't make assumptions. Okay, so what happens is that when there's dysfunction, the fascia turns from this viscous quality to crystalline. It becomes sort of crystallized, and it adheres to its neighbor, who then makes the neighbor in dysfunction, who adheres to that neighbor, and then that. It always reminds me of that commercial, and they tell 2 friends, and they tell 2 friends. Like it starts this cascade of adherences that at the end you've got a pain pattern, but where the heck did it start from? Okay? That's why I just can't go into fix mode. Fascia is so, because not only is it everywhere, but it has so many roles, okay? So not only does it have layers, but it helps you structurally, do support, it's a protection. That layering you absorbs shock. That's interesting, isn't it? It's one of the reasons, has anybody ever heard of Rolfing and that kind of work? No, anyway. When one is having Rolfing done, it's very deep, very painful, and it often evokes emotional responses. Well, I personally think that's because you're absorbing some of the stuff that's happening, gets absorbed in there. Hemodynamic processes, meaning that it's helping the blood movement. Okay? And then it has defense, and I'm talking about it like has hormonal. There is a defense in it because you actually have communication and exchange and biochemical processes. So you have hormones that actually are going through. You have electrical impulses that are going through your fascia. How important is this stuff? Like, so important. And, you know, the medical people are like, oh,
just move it away.
Move that over. You know what I mean? Like, wow. Wow. So anyway, fascia. We're big in fascia. Fascia is interconnected. This is just a picture that shows how this layer is connected to that layer, connected to here, to there, and that's what this shows you, is that fascia is interrelated. So all the layers are actually connected to each other and together. Okay? Everybody cool so far? If you have any questions, please, feel free. There is another kind of fascia this was figured out by the man who was the head of my school. I went in the early 2000s. I had been a body worker for quite a while, before I went to osteopathic school, and I went to a French osteopathic school, and no, it wasn't English, yes it was, and the very head of my school, he figured out that there is a line of connection, and it's connected fascially through the body. And so this is from the very top of your head, it goes into the middle of your brain where the thalamus is, and if you decide to take the training, you will learn how very important this is. And this is the third ventricle, is this sort of space where there's a lot of cerebrospinal fluid in the middle of the head, and the interesting thing to me is that the back wall of that becomes the fascia in your throat. Hello, I have tension coming out of my neck and happening in my throat. It doesn't have to only be my throat, but it's tension in the neck. It's going to go up and pull in the middle of my brain. And sitting here, I'll just say this, sitting here by this third ventricle is your pituitary gland, which is the head of your hormone. It's not the head, they call it the master endocrine gland, but the master to me is the hypothalamus, which also sits by there. And then now the big whoop these days, which I'm on the whoop train, is the pineal gland is at the back of the ventricle. So if I have something pulling and doing something, it's going to affect all three of those glands. And those are some majors, aren't they? Then it goes down and connects into the back part of the throat. It goes down to the pericardium that I mentioned, which is the fascia around the heart. These are all connecting, okay? Connecting. So I've got something going on with my heart. I'm going to have it pulling all the way into my head and all the way down to my pelvic floor. So then the pericardium connects to, this is a ligament in the middle of the liver. So then it goes down. This is my small intestines, where they're attaching on the back wall of my abdomen. So it's coming down and attaching there. It attaches to a ligament that's on the top of the uterus. There's also one on the top of the prostate. So all of these are connected, and then they connect to the very bottom of your pelvic floor, to your perineum. So I have something going on with any of these, they're going to be pulling any of the other ones of these. And when I give my example of why it's so important to understand all of these systems of the body, when I give the example and show you from this one event how all these things are affected, we're going to remember this. And isn't it interesting that we have all these going down the body, and they're the same places as this? I'm sure that my teacher was thinking this as well. The French are, the British are very, because I did a training in Britain for a year, and then I had the 5 years with French guys, and the British people are very more like us, bang, bang, very like this, organized, doing this, and the French are kind of like, you take 2 hours for lunch, and 3.5 hours later you're back in class. I mean, it was like, and those of us who were like me and the other British, because I took class up in Vancouver. That's where I was, and me and the other British Vancouverans who were very like, we're back in class waiting and waiting. Yes, if you've been to France or met the French, and I love it. I love it because one of the things that happened to me in this 5 years of that 5 years of training, it gave me also so much information, knowledge, critical thinking, but it also gave me this spatial concept to allow other ways of thinking to come in. And that, I'm telling you, that's a part of this whole, that's the art form in this work. Because this work is not just about work. It is while you're in the training. In the training, you're like, oh my God, am I ever going to get this? But so was I. But think about it. I had 5 years. You'll have less. But, you know, it was like, I mean, I was overwhelmed and feeling small and feeling stupid and feeling like I'd never get it and all that stuff when I was in school, you know. And but it is truly an art form. Isn't it, Jill?
It is. It is. That's where the magic happens.
Yes.
Of it.
Yes. And you have to kind of believe that it's possible to have the magic happen. You know, I do, and I also accept when it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You know, I gotta tell you, it's like not every time I go in the room do I feel like, oh yeah, this was magic.
Yeah,
like,
it does.
the
What the angels sing.
Stuff like that. That doesn't always happen. Okay. All right. Now there's that cranial sacral system, which is the deep it has within it the deepest layer of fascia. So the fascia within the cranial sacral system is called meninges. And you've all heard meningitis, right? You've heard the illness meningitis. It's an inflammation of those 3 layers of fascia. Okay? That's what an itis is. An itis is an inflammation, and meningitis is an inflammation. It could be bacterial, it could be viral, but it's an inflammation of those. But that's not the only thing in the cranial sacral system. The cranial sacral system is made up of, oh, we don't have it here. It's I think we have it here. It's made up of the bones of the head. Okay? It's made up of those membranes that we just talked about, the meninges that actually circles the brain and goes down and goes around the spinal cord. So it's these membranes are one that go all the way down, and what they do is, this is the sacrum, which is the bone at the bottom of your spine, and your layers of membrane come in and detach into your sacrum. That's why it's called the cranial sacral therapy. Okay? Cranial sacral therapy is a part of every module because I am a big believer in it. I am well studied in it, and I think that you have to have, I will sort of say this at the end, I believe that in order to come in and help somebody and help do a treatment plan is that I have to have more than one modality. Because not everybody's a nail. So I'm not just a hammer. You know what I'm saying? Is that I have to be able to go, oh, what is it that, you know, what I teach, and all right, you're a nail now. As I hammer this in, is that, you know, the treatment plan is in the body, not my body, your body. So when I come in and I make the initial, first there's a history taking, then there's sort of an assessment. And each time you come in, we're assessing where you are, and then your body tells me what to do. So how, if I only do one thing, it doesn't matter what your body says, I'm just doing that, right? That's all I've got, that's all I'm doing. So, the cranial sacral system is a really important system to know because it interfaces with also many issues that are going on. But the biggest one is that it interfaces with is the body being in trauma or fight or flights are on, or guarding, however, or high stress. However you want to name it, it's all the same thing because it all has the same reaction in the body. And that's the way I teach in order to connect to it, to help that calm down, because you cannot get a change to happen in the body if the fight or flights, or however you want to name it, is on. High stress, fight or flights, whatever. If that's going on, no changes can happen in the body. Body's guarded. It doesn't want to change. It's like, I'm not changing. I'm going to stay right here. And then if I try to do something, it sort of gathers itself closer, you know? So it's so important from my viewpoint, can I say that enough? My viewpoint on this is that you have to have at least some way in which you interface with that issue. Because in our world, it is going on in spades. I've never seen, in my 37 years, I've never seen anything like it, like what's going on now. Never, never, never. Okay. craniosacral system. Fluid system, like hello, so we've got, basically we have actually another one, but basically there's blood, lymph, and cerebral spinal fluid, okay? And my belief about this is that every bit of body work, and if I'm just talking at physical level, if I'm not talking on any other level than physical, is all about freeing the fluids, because this is where life is coming. This is taking out the toxicity and some of the waste. This is bringing oxygen, taking away waste, okay? And cerebral spinal fluid is the one that's circulating and bringing nutrition to the brain and spinal cord, and also filtering out waste with it and stuff. So for us, even though we're thinking, yes, I want that line of gravity to be working, I want them to be standing in their pelvis and doing all that, but the ultimate real deal underneath thing, though you don't think that all the time when you're treating, is actually that you are trying to get the fluid system running, okay? And the other thing is that everything that's ever happened to you is imprinted in your blood. Isn't that interesting? Your blood holds the imprint of every experience you've ever had. I want mine circulating, you know what I mean? I want those puppies going, you know? Okay, just showing you blood is all over the place. And then here's the lymphatic system. The lymph nodes are everywhere. And the way I was taught when I did a class on lymphatics a million years ago, it isn't my thing, but some of the graduates have gone off to do, I need to talk to you about that.
Okay.
Some of the graduates have gone off to do heavy duty, be into lymphatics and stuff. You know, sometimes it's a springboard into like what you would really like to focus in. There's been several that have really focused in craniosacral, and then others that have taken other kinds of classes. But when I learned lymphatics, it was, the way they said this was, you know, you are absorbing through the blood capillaries, the used and sort of toxic stuff is being absorbed into the capillaries, and it's being taken, you know, taken back up to be cleaned and do all that stuff. But anything that's too big to kind of go across the wall of the capillary, right, gets picked up by the lymphatics. So the lymphatics is your secondary system, I say that loosely. It's the system that's picking up toxic stuff that's too big for the bloodstream to carry, okay? So it's going in, and then it is going to the different lymph nodes, and actually the major player of your lymph nodes and immune system are actually in your gut. This doesn't make it look like this, but it is in your gut, so it's kind of interesting. And then, of course, here is where it goes back in, and interestingly enough, that after it's gone through the lymph nodes and it's traveled all the way up and goes back into the bloodstream up here under your collarbones, then it goes back into your bloodstream. Isn't it? I find that interesting. It goes back into your bloodstream. So does your cerebral spinal fluid eventually find its way. Whatever's kind of coming out finds its way back into the bloodstream too. That's very interesting, isn't it? That everything goes back in the blood. And one of the biggest osteopathic tenets is the artery rules supreme. And it took me a long time, like a lot of years, to think about, when I was thinking about that, like, what do they mean when they say the artery rules supreme? I was in this very, like, I don't know, because hello, you try to get some of that French, broken French, English stuff. Anyway, they didn't explain it. I would have heard it if they did. But anyway, it all goes back into the bloodstream, and so therefore the blood is so powerful, so powerful. Okay. And the cerebral spinal fluid circulates. There's a circulation around the brain and around the spinal cord. One would get into that. The next system is something called the pressure system, which is like, huh? What? Why? Huh? But oh my gosh, the pressure system is very huge. So your body is pressurized. Okay? So my body, your body, all the bodies are pressurized. And they're pressurized in cavities. So I have this cavity is pressurized, this cavity is pressurized, this cavity, and that cavity is pressurized. So I have these different pressurized things. And so what creates the boundaries to create the pressures We'll start here. It's like your respiratory diaphragm here in the middle of your body. Helps to create this, keep a balanced pressure. And the pressures are different, but they're supposed to be balanced with each other. Okay? And then you have your pelvic diaphragm, so there's one in the pelvic floor. There's a respiratory, there's a thoracic at this level, and then this one, the tentorium, is actually in the middle of your head. So one of the deals is that I have these pressure systems, and when they're off, then what happens is that I'll give you an example. The right pressure should be in the gut, because you need pressure on the intestines, because yes, there's a wave-like motion that's in the muscles of the intestines, but there's also the correct pressure that's helping you in there. Okay? But one of the most pressurized organs there is the kidney. When the kidney's pressure is off, what's the symptom? The biggest symptom? Two symptoms that come out of the kidneys? Ringing in your ears and dizziness. So, if I have somebody coming into me who says to me, I have ringing in my ears, or I have a little vertigo, I'm a little dizzy. Now, the first place most everybody's going to jump on is here. Well, the first place I'm looking is I'm going to take a hold of your kidneys and see, are your kidneys overpressurized in some way that's creating that? So so there are different places, like the kidneys have one pressure, the ureter that comes out of them and goes down to the bladder has a higher pressure, so that your kidneys aren't constantly just way dumping, and my bladder has another pressure. That's just within the pressurized system, that's another pressurized system, you see? So it's like pressures are so important to help create good function. So this just shows you pelvic diaphragm, respiratory diaphragm, thoracic diaphragm. Here's the one that's in the middle of the head. This is a bad picture, but the one in the middle of the head is here, right up here. So pelvic, respiratory, thoracic, and the tentorium. And the deal is, though, we have sub ones. So this author thinks that every joint has a diaphragm. But for sure, your plantar fascia is a diaphragm. Your palmar fascia is a diaphragm. So there are your tongue is actually a diaphragm. Your tongue is a diaphragm. So these things, they're like everywhere. And understanding the body is an interesting deal. Okay. The visceral or organ system. Now, I always love this picture because it's so much fun. Here's your little kidneys. This is all taken out. And here's your kidneys. This is my respiratory diaphragm, the underneath of my respiratory diaphragm. Here's my kidneys on those back walls. Here they are living right here. This is my hip flexor right here. Here's my hip flexor. So my kidney is living right, that example is living right there on my hip flexor. But I love this picture because now when you see this, you're never going to unsee this. Do you know what I mean? It's like, wow, I'm never going to unsee this. So here's the lungs. Right? My right one, my heart, my left one is smaller because of the heart being in there. They have cut away my respiratory diaphragm here. So underneath my respiratory diaphragm, which is like a parachute or an umbrella, okay, so here's my liver, here's my stomach, here's my large intestine right here. Here's my large intestine. You can't see the other side. And this is all small intestine. Okay, now let's look at what we think this person died of. All right, should we kind of go there? Something happened to this entire lobe of their liver, this right lobe. You can't even see it. So what's happening here is their stomach is so enlarged. This stomach should be, about this big. Okay? That stomach is so enlarged. And the liver, the biggest lobe of the liver, which is your right lobe, this lobe is your left lobe, which looks normal, and it should be all the way to over here. There should be a big, we don't have a picture of it.
I don't think so.
This should be a big right lobe that's not even there, or that it's withered. So I'm thinking that whatever happened here to this liver is what killed this person. I don't know what it is. I have no idea what happened. But here's the reason why I teach the organs. Because I learned them and you have to do what I did. All right, fine? That's just the way it is. All right. I teach the organs because I just had this discussion with this unbelievable naturopath who's out of state, and is that 65 to 90, that's what the statistic is, 65 to 90% of the pain in your body is coming out of an organ. So how can I, with any kind of ethics, not teach you how to work on organs? So we go through the structure of the body, which I'll talk about sort of the format of the class, and then the last third of the training is organs. And what are the patterns that come out of the organs? Because each of the organs has patterns. Now, an organ can create some weird-ass patterns, trust me. But there are some basics that that they do. So we're interested in knowing, like, what are those? Of course, we want to know. So this person, because there's something going on here, where's their pain pattern is going to for sure be in this right here. But I think that, okay, so something that I've learned recently in a very big way is that there is such a synergistic working between the liver and the pancreas. The liver and the pancreas are way working together. Who lives right underneath this stomach? The pancreas. So if the pancreas is in some kind of trouble, this stomach is going to this could happen to the stomach. Maybe. You know, I'm surmising, I have no idea. So, because, the reason why is because of this. Here we go. Look at where this shoulder is, and look at where this shoulder is. Look at the shape of this shoulder. See this? Look at the shape of that shoulder. Do you see the two differences? Doesn't this look bigger, higher, fuller? Jillian's saying yes, but anybody else agrees with me? Yes, shake your
Good.
things.
Yeah.
I'm very, what's the word I want? Needy or insecure, and you have to like be with it. Okay. So anyway, you can see that this is so much bigger. Well, we're enlarged here. So it's pushing the shoulder up and making the shoulder bigger. So this is where this person is going to have their pain, is right there. So they're going to come into your office and they're going to say, or they said, yeah, my shoulder hurts. Man, I have all this tension in my shoulder and it kind of goes up into my neck. And you're going, left side could be pancreas, could be spleen. Spleen is over there too. Could be pancreas, could be spleen, right? Then on the right side, I'm just, because the liver is withered, they're going to be smaller and tighter here. Okay? So if it was something congestion going on for some reason in the liver, you're going to have this over here. So there's also something going on pancreas and spleen wise. I would probably, for sure, pancreas. Stomach is way too big. So anyway, that's the deal is that when you go through the training, you actually learn to have more x-ray vision. As you're looking at somebody, you're like, oh. Because I cannot tell you, I have taught a lot of PTs, and I cannot tell you that they get very hooked on, yep, it's a high shoulder, low shoulder, situation. They got a low shoulder or whatever. And I'm like, okay, now why? Like, what's creating that? I'm not just interested in that you have a high shoulder and low shoulder, and I'm going to get on you and I'm going to make that shoulder go down, no matter what it really is all about. But it's really like, because because of the nature of our body, the most body-centered therapies out there, that they are muscle focused, that's why people ask me after I treat them, is like, how many treatments, this exact treatment, do they need to have for it to stay? Well, because we're going for what's really going on, you have a better chance of getting the parts and then getting more of the parts next time. So it isn't the same thing where I have to always keep retreating you. Because people say that I had a treatment and the next day I was the same. And a treatment and the next day it's the same. So this is one of the biggest reasons, because I have this in the training. Because because I have this in the training, then it makes us more successful. There's many reasons, many. This just is one of them. Then there's electromagnetic system that we don't work that much, but we talk about, okay? And it definitely is heart-centered. And 2 days ago, I did a whole post on, the heart itself and its field and all of that kind of stuff. And anyway, so there's electromagnetics. And one of the things is we go to Wi-Fi and all the EMF and 3G and 4G, now 5G, and they're talking about 6G somewhere in there. I've seen it a few times. Is that the more that's being produced in our atmosphere, the more it's dysregulating us because we have an electrical system. And the biggest electrical organ is your heart. Your heart has more electromagnetic frequency than your brain does. And so and there's electrical nodes in the heart. And that's why you're hearing so much AFib, people with heart dysregulation, the beating, the AFib and all that kind of stuff. It's just all the time, and some of the offending things, I don't see any here, thank goodness, is that, wearing these eye watches and stuff like that is another. You're pulling Wi-Fi right in, or what's the exercise one?
The Fitbit or the
Fitbit.
Apple
You're
Watches.
You're pulling Wi-Fi right into your body. So they're not even going to correlate how your heart started to get beating weirdly when that's happening, So protection, that's what you got to do, because they're not getting rid of this stuff. That stuff's not going out of our culture. You just have to protect yourself, looking up online, EMF protection. It'll come for stuff on the phone, for stuff on your computer, for yourself, for your car, for your whatever. Okay. And then there's the morphogenic field, which is the collective consciousness, and that we are all in the morphogenic field. We are all part of it. We are all in it. And in the cranial, there is a cranial rhythm that actually allows you to drop into that, which is awesome. It's so you can't make it happen. You're just saying, I'm here, and wherever you want to go, we're going. You know what I mean? So it is fun. It is so much fun. Okay. Is that it?
That is.
That's it. Good. All right.
Yeah.
We'll leave the morphogenic field up so we can be in that state while I explain. Okay. Any questions? Everybody okay so far? All right. So let's do. What do you want to do? A car accident or a tailbone fall? What do you want to do?
Car accident.
Car accident. All right. So we're going to show you when somebody has. How many people here have been in a car accident? So I don't know how many people of the 2 or 12 that are in line have got their hands raised, but we do. Okay. Car accident. Here we are. I'm getting better.
Look at.
Look at this. I don't want to be in a Tesla. I just read how dangerous it is. There's an article on these e-cars and how now people who drive them for a while, God, I shouldn't say this for a while.
No.
People who have been driving this for a while. I was thinking like, I thought one of those. After the article, I just changed my mind and going back to having a Chevy.
Right.
Okay?
An old one.
An old Chevy. Here's the light. Here's the Chevy. Okay. All right. It's just a 2-door, okay? I'm not going with a 4-door because I'm sporty. Very sporty. All right. Here I am. Okay. I'm pretending that I drive at 10 to 2. Okay? I'm pretending that I drive that way. All right. So, and here's the other thing is, what color? Here are my 2 bucks. Okay. So, somebody just hit me in the back here. Okay? And they were going 40. So, my head is going, this is my head's velocity. What is that? So, they're going 40. times 5, that's how fast, 5 to 8 times. My head is gonna whip in its whiplash, that fast or that hard, right? With the miles per hour that's going on. So I don't know how to do the math, because that's not my thing, this is my thing. You're in my thing. Is that, I don't know what the math is, if I'm going 40 and he's going 60, what that means, I don't know. But it doesn't really matter, because when you think about the fact that, so I've stopped and he hits me and my head's going 200 miles an hour back and forth. Right? So that's the first thing that happens in your whiplash. So, and when they hit and I go, so I go forward, then I go backward, then I go forward, I don't know how many times you're gonna do that. My jaw goes the opposite way when I go backwards. So I go clamp, open, clamp, I hit. So, of course, I have now strained both the back of my neck and the front of my neck, that's a thing that I was so lucky to have been taught back in 1989, how to work the muscles that are on the anterior part of the neck, because most of the time when you're having, you have whiplash, you go to a massage therapist, they're working the back part, the back of the neck, with the back of the neck muscles. And in this class, in the cervical class, you are learning how to work the front of them, which is imperative when you have a whiplash, which is going both ways. It's imperative, okay? And that deep fascia that we were talking about, the deep fascia that's in here, you have to know also how to work on that, which is also part of the cervical class that we do, is to show you how to work on that. Okay, so, but you think that's all that happens in there? Because that's all they're looking at, when you're in a whiplash, you're in a car accident, and you get a whiplash, then the docs and everybody is all looking at your neck, right? Well, here's what also happens. We're changing our perspective, you guys. All right, so, here's me with the hair. There's my hair. But, it's me, and I'm wearing blue today, and I have earrings. Okay, it's very important. Okay. So, here's the deal. And here's my face, my eyes, my nose, my mouth, okay? Yeah, that's me. And then, what you do have here is, I'm the driver. Okay, so I'm the driver. So from this way comes the seatbelt. Alrighty? So there's the seatbelt that comes across. So one of the things that happens is that I'm locking up on this clavicle. My clavicle then locks this one. So I'm going to have more shoulder issues now because my clavicle is now locked. And I asked this, but there is no test at the end of today. But who did I say goes underneath? Do you remember? Who goes underneath the clavicle right in the middle? Your lymphatics go back into your bloodstream. So if I now have locked this up, have I slowed up the lymphatics going back into my bloodstream? And on the left-hand side, the lymphatics from almost the entire body goes into the left-hand side. The right-hand side only has this, the right arm right here and right here. But the left-hand side has the left head, the left arm, the left part of the thorax, the entire gut, the pelvis, the legs. So everything else is going in here. I'm the driver. Now I've slowed up lymphatics going back in there. So there's a back pressure a little bit through my lymphatic system, isn't there? You see how the weird and wacky crap that can go on in your body that now has reduced your immune system. In a subtle way, your immune system is now reduced. So in 10 years from now, when I get blah, 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 it's not going to be also attributed to the part of the start was that I had 5 car accidents and I was the driver every time. Do you see what I mean? And how that's stopping that. So we go on. So now we have, okay. I've got an idea. Okay. So now we have, okay. So we've affected muscles because we're in the neck, right? We've affected the vertebrae in the neck, which is bones, right? Okay, so we also have clavicle here, okay? So now we've got The lymphatic system is now affected, which is part of your immune. If you decide to take class, you will totally understand that I do not know how to spell. So it's a work,
That's great.
it's fluid, it's completely fluid. Alrighty? And don't worry if you help me with it. I'm good with that. Alright, so now here's my seatbelt, gets my clavicle, and I have to say, I had that car accident, and I'm harder than a rock in this clavicle. And then I feel locked up in this shoulder because I ballroom dance and have my arm up like this, fatigues quickly because of the whole clavicle issue here. So, all right. Now, who's in here? Who lives in here that I just showed you a picture just a little bit ago? I just showed you a picture in here, or a slide. A slide. I didn't show you a picture, I showed you a slide. Who's here? Your heart. So my heart, so the seatbelt is now across my heart, okay? So the seatbelt crosses my heart, alrighty? And what does it do? It locks my heart down. Your heart, it's not supposed to be moving through the cavity, but your heart has that fluid ability that when it's pumping and stuff, it's doing, you know, it has its own kind of life to it, vitality to it. And now you've locked some of that out. Okay? But even more than that, okay, I'll move it over here. I'll take it over here. Even more than that, you know what I need? I need green or something, but that's okay. I'll live. I'll live. Okay. So here is the part that is so important to know your anatomy, is because this. Is because that fascia that I talked about, the pericardium around the heart, attaches in your neck. So, when I whipped back, did it not go like this? And then I slammed down. And then I whip back, and it goes like this. So not only does my heart get locked because of the seatbelt, but it gets yanked because of the whiplash on the pericardium. And so what happens? I'm a perfect example of this. If I turn sideways, see how my head is forward of my neck, and my neck is forward of my body? You see that, don't you? Is that was a severe, severe car accident that actually locked the heart and took me forward. Right? So when you're working with somebody who, so now we have organ, right, in our list of stuff. And then of course with this organ, we get more bone stuff and more muscle stuff, right? Because now what happens is my neck is not on my body, my vertebrae of my neck is not sitting on my body correctly. My muscles have to hold my head up, which is not supposed to be what's happening. So you're always having aching in the neck, or aching right where the neck meets the body, because that part is doing a job. The only thing a muscle is supposed to do is move you. Muscle is dumb. It knows on and off. That's not dumb. It's just simple. I've got to change my order. Muscle is simple. It knows on and it knows off. It doesn't know, its role in the body is not the clamp, but more often than not, pain in the shoulder ends up coming from, like we showed you how high that was, but that's because the pain is only there because the muscles are now having to clamp in order to stabilize a place it's not supposed to stabilize. The pain did not come from the fact that it expanded and rose. The pain came from the fact that now the muscles have to hold you there. See this? You get me, don't you? Good. All right. What do we got so far? We got muscles, bones, lymph, organs, fascia. So we have the fat. That's right. Thank you, Jillian.
You're welcome.
Jillian always helps me.
It's my, it's
really
fine.
awesome. So awesome. I don't even know how I did this before her. Okay. So it's fascia. Pressures are now going to be off because now you're going to have more pressure in the thoracic cavity. And I haven't even said anything okay? About the fact that you have the seatbelt going this way. Okay? So you have the seatbelt going across here. So it's going to get you in the lower organs, it's going to get you in the pelvis, okay? So, don't I have just about every system that I've actually mentioned in this one car accident? And, like when I have a class of people, and I ask how many people have been in a car accident, almost everybody has. And when I ask them how many people have had a tailbone fall, almost everybody has. So that's another one, I usually use a car or a tailbone fall and cascade through how it's in all the parts, okay? So, of course, I didn't say cranial sacral, but one of the things that comes out of a whiplash in cranial sacral, so I'm just gonna say cranial sacral system, we'll just say CSS, is that when you do the whiplash, it actually makes the back of your head go high. So you have a lot of tension on the cranial base and tension on the brainstem, tension on right where the brainstem exits from the head. So it's a lot of tension coming across here. Now, here's the thing, you guys, is that how often does somebody come into my office and they've only had one car accident and they haven't had another fall or other accidents or had an intense birth or fell and broke their leg or right, you know, done some repetitive job that actually put some patterns into them. So rarely are you getting something that is just like one individual thing that's happened to them. I'm always, and I have to tell you is that I work people of all ages, from 2 days old to, you know, 90, whatever. And even the youngsters, the young kids and the teenagers have multiple things that have happened to them. And especially the ones that do a lot of sports. So there's lots of different things that come from the different sports and stuff like that. Gymnastics, gymnastics, horseback riding, oh my gosh, the patterns that are coming out of these things. And so anyway, the parents that are kind of on the ball have their children where they see one of us. There's many people, there's several graduates now, and that are practicing. You know, there's some that aren't and some that are. And you know, if parents are really on the ball, they're having their kids treated through these things. You know, so did I miss anything?
Not for that. No.
I don't think so either.
Affects all the things.
I did all the things. Anybody have any questions? Comments? No? You're never going to look at a car accident again the same way, are you? Well, I don't. Not anymore. All right. So should we talk about school and what it's really like and all that?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay.
It's really like that, where we find out a lot of the different things and then we start figuring out how to treat each part of that too,
Right.
which is pretty amazing.
Right. And which is the part that's the biggest one that says, I have to go first? That's the other part. Learning how to let the body tell you, out of all those things that happened to me, what's the first thing that has to get done, you know? So, it's an interesting kind of deal, actually. It keeps it so interesting. I think I would have stopped doing this years and years and freaking years ago, because I just have an inquiring kind of mind, you know, and that I didn't realize I did. And because I started studying, like I graduated from massage school. I started in January of 1887.
1887.
And I'm looking fabulous, man. 1987, and
Still looking fabulous.
even though it was that long ago, thank you, is that and I got out of school. It was a year-long program, a $500, just muscles, man. And I got out of school, and within a month, I was already taking something. You know, I was already taking a weekend workshop. You know, and that was, and then now that I could either stand at either end, looking from the beginning, going whoa, or looking back down the hill and going wow, and then I went from, you know, taking these weekend workshops and stuff to doing longer trainings and In 1990, I started studying cranial sacral therapy and started studying it, and then I became an assistant to a man that and so I taught all over the world with him, cranial sacral, while I was still learning about it myself. And then in the mid-90s, in 1994, I started studying birth trauma. And I have goosebumps even just saying that to you, is that birth trauma is a massive thing. It's huge what's going on. It was huge then when I started studying it, and it's got nothing about what's going on now. Like the kind of trauma that's happening to children and to us, I mean, because we're all of an age that we got something, do you know what I mean? You gotta get out. You gotta get out. And so, like what happens with all the different birth styles and so forth. And so I started studying that, and then I went and I studied Rolfing, which is that deep fascial work. I went and closed my practice and went and lived in Colorado for about 2.5 months and studied that. And at the time when I did that, in Boulder, Colorado, there's a Buddhist university, and I took a lot of classes there. And then I took, they had a symposium on trauma while I was in Boulder. They had this symposium on trauma, and it blew my mind. It blew my mind. So it made me understand how, like, trauma is operating, like, it's just operating and you don't even know that it's operating. Like, we're in our traumas and moving from them without knowing that we're doing that. Anyway, and so then I began to study trauma stuff at the same time. I was continuing some of my other body work, and then I went and I did a year-long, oh God, I'm even tired just telling you, is that in 1998, 7, I don't know, one of those years, I every 3 weeks flew to London and spent a week in the countryside of England studying biodynamic cranial sacral. And so, and I've been assisting and teaching and all sorts of other things, and I did the biodynamic there. And then I went and I taught, I was assistant on that program for a year with them afterwards, and that was a year long, so every 3 weeks I went to England. And then I also taught in Italy, Switzerland, Canada. We went down to teach in Jamaica. It was kind of an interesting sort of deal. Anyway, and then I moved down here in 1999. I moved down here, and then a trauma training came to here. And I did it was a year-long trauma training, and I did that, and it made me even understand even more deeply, like, woo, man, about trauma. So let me say that there is a day in the training in the 3rd module that I talk about trauma. We do a whole trauma lecture, because you need to understand, because trauma's coming in the door. You got it, 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 I got it, and all those people have it. So it has to in my viewpoint, of course, my whole training is my opinion. So there you go. Is that, in my opinion, it is something so important to understand that trauma is coming in your door, and how do I hold that? How do I hold that bigger place and understanding? Not how do I evoke your trauma? How do I make you go through your trauma? No. But how do I understand what it is I'm looking at? How do I understand how to be with it in a really healthy way? Okay? Because it's inevitable that it comes in. So trauma is a part of that, And then after that, in 2003, I went to osteopathic school, and I was going to become a DO here, and I was on the track to do that, taking all the sciences, which I suck at that. And anyway, and then I heard about this 5-year program up in Canada, but I didn't hear that it was a 5-year program. I heard about the program that was in Canada, and so I, and this is very me, so you have to realize that this is 2003, so I got on the horn and called. I didn't go, let me email them, let me text them. I had called, and I got the administrator of the school, and she and I stayed on the phone for an hour, and then I faxed her my resume of what I had done up until that. She goes, you're in, you're done, and 2 weeks later I flew to Vancouver. And then that's when I found out it was a 5-year program. I only thought it was a year. Fire me. Okay. And so, at some point during that first year, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not going more than a year here. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And then this friend that I had been sitting with, I met her there, said, oh no, you are finishing. And as soon as I made that decision, I never waffled again. I never missed a class. I never waffled. And 5 years, every 6 weeks, I went to Vancouver. So coming here every other month for 4 days is not that big of a deal, considering that I went up there how many times, you know, with flights and hotels and taxis and all the rest of it, and eating out and doing all that stuff. So anyway, I did that. I did the osteopathic training, and my world was changed. But I also have to say, my world was changed because, what I said earlier in the beginning of this, where I was in a place of where I didn't know what I was doing. I've been a body worker for 15 years, 16 years. My God, you know. But thank God that I had studied and done as much as I did before I got there, because their assumption of how much you knew was like stunning. And so, whoo! But they used to, I will say this in the training, I'm sure, but my friend Pam, who we sat together the whole 5 years, she, you know, because I was the stupid American and she was the Canadian, she'd look at me and she'd go, when we're studying anatomy, I used to want to slap her. She was very fun. So, but to say that I did that 5-year training, and at the same time while I did that, I went and did a massive dissection class. I also went up and did other classes. I went to Boston and studied embryology. I went, you know, I did all these other things in the in-between things. And then I did all the symposiums that my school itself put on, which they put on 3 a year. So I did pediatrics, I did pregnancy, I did, you know, oh gosh, it's on and on and on. And then what happened is, so I graduated from there in 2008, and I kept going, doing the symposiums and everything, and then in 2012, it was like the light switch switched off. And I stopped going and learning more, learning more. And, you know, I'll just say this because it's true, and it's just, I mean, it's just true. I'm put on the planet to do this, is that I've always been really good at what I do. I was a great I was a great waitress. I was always the highest ringer. I was a great massage therapist. That's my karma. That's my thing. And so, you know, I am really good at doing this work and doing this stuff. And of course, I didn't feel that way when I was in school. But when I was in school, I thought I stunk, sucked, worst ever. You know, when everybody's going through that, I'm like, yeah, been there, done that. You know, and but then after 2012, something happened that said, don't go out and get more from the outside. Let it come from the inside. And so for the last 12 years, I've been growing and learning. And there was about 3 or 4 years, this is before I moved out of the house, where I felt like the ancestors in the osteopathic tradition were sitting in the room with me. Like I palpably felt them showing me the way on these people. So my learning became something on a much different level, a different dimension. And ever since then, it's been, but I am constantly figuring something else out.
Yes.
Jillian knows this. I am constantly, oh, wow. And I believe that a part of that is also because I have the room that allows it to come in, you know. And I also am in this place that I'm sure that if I went to somebody else's training, there'd be something that I would learn. But I'm just in that place where it's like, it's not about me bringing more in versus me sharing it with you, and how its unfoldment has happened within me. So anyway, that's my history of what's been going on. I didn't mean to even say that, but I sort of started on that line. Okay. The school. School is, I'm going to do this so that it becomes very clear, okay? So school is, and we have the list there. The school is 14 modules long. And each module is 4 days, and they are always, the 4 days are always Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I don't want to say Thursday through Sunday because you might not think we go to school on Sunday, which we do. It's right here. It's Thursday through Sunday, okay? It's always that way. The time is
5:30.
okay. The time is 8:30 to 5:30, although we're a little flexible on the 5:30 part. Alrighty. So it's every other month. I'm writing this really big. Other month, okay? It's not every month, it's every other month. So if you have 4 days in August, you have 4 days in October, 4 days in December. And trust me, we've looked at holidays, we've looked at everything. It's all adjusty about the holidays and the everything. All the holidays, all the everything, okay? So that's all. So we have 14 modules, 4 days, Thursday through Sunday, including Sunday, 8:30 to 5:30, every other month, okay? So it takes 2 years and 2 months to get through it. And although the desire is to go through this quickly, I'll say something about, I'll say quickly something, about that, is that how well can you really know the body when you're doing it fast? That's number one. And the depth and the breadth of this work is so deep and so life-changing in its depth that you can't do it fast. So how many, is it still 5? Is it still 5 between?
Yep, it's still 5 between.
Okay. And in the 2 months between class, the minimum you must have five practice clients, okay? So you must have 5 practice clients, and we, on the first module, at the very beginning, introduced you that there is a little client review sheet. And you have to hand in 5 of those. That is your bottom line, because 5 of these over this life of the school, or the life of your class, in between, makes 65, and so this equals 435.
448, actually.
Oh, fine.
Yeah.
448, really?
Yep.
Okay. 448.
I know.
448 hours, and this equals 65 hours. So you're just over 5. So you're 513.
513. Yep.
Okay. So you gotta have it. You gotta have the 65, because if you don't have the 65, you don't have the 500 hours, and you don't get to graduate. Okay.
Also, the state of Oklahoma requires a 500-hour program in order to then be able to take the MBLEX to get licensed.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah.
We'll get that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So. Now I'm going to talk about special things about this program. Then we'll talk about finances at the end. Special, I promise, is that every one of these modules is filmed. So the filming is of my lecture, or whoever's lecturing, my lecture, and the demonstrations, which I demo on the assistants. So there are assistants for every program. So I'm demoing on the assistants, not on the students. So the students can all watch. So Jillian or whomever has the camera over me and the assistant, and all the classes just gather around. Okay? So everything's filmed. So you have a private YouTube, Google.
Google Drive, but there's a YouTube. You'll have links to YouTube forever for all of the videos.
For all the videos. You'll always have the videos in perpetuity, like till you're 120, okay? So you'll always have the videos. So you can always go back. And labeled, OMG, do these guys label them? They label them so clearly in good chunks so that everything is so doable. Like you're like, oh yeah, I want to know how to do the ear pull. Bang, you're going to be able to get there, okay? Easily. I say this because in the very first training I had a different assistant, and she turned the camera on, and then she'd lay on the floor and cover herself, and whether I was in the camera or not, The camera was rolling. And the camera rolled for hours, which I had no idea. Like, hello, non-technical. Anyway, so when we had somebody before Jillian as the administrative assistant, and she cleaned that whole thing up. Oh, thank God. Oh my God, Lynn, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm so grateful to her. I told her that the other day. Anyway, and so they're videoed. So you always have access to go back on the video, and I can't tell you how many of the students review, and then we've got one student who he works in Oklahoma City, so he drives from here to there and he listens, and he can verbatim, like, he has the ability to tell back what it is I say. He's listened to it so much. That's pretty funny. So the other thing I want to say is that the more you practice, the better you get. The more you study, the better you get. So what's also happened is study groups have grown together. So there'll be 3, 2, 3, so sometimes 2 people will be the ones that study and practice with each other all the time, or you'll have 4 of them, or they'll do back and forth. We do have a study group.
Practice, yeah.
Practice
We have
session.
practices
We have
scheduled through the
practices.
rest of this year.
We do?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so there's practices, and they're here, and with one of the assistants, and she comes and sort of runs it, but you have to let her know. Actually, either you text her, we give you the number if you're not on Facebook, but you have to let her know that you're coming, because she won't, if nobody's coming, or she doesn't have to come here and sit here, do you know what I'm saying? Is that, so there's practice sessions where you can ask questions, do things, and students of in all classes are here. So there's 2 other classes that are presently going, and then there'll be a class after you, because I'm assuming every one of you is coming into class, because I'm just going to talk that way, is that there's a group 10 starting early next year, and so you would already have a few modules under your belt before they even started. So you get all the varying degrees of people in, at experience, whatever, however you want to say that, okay? So, like I say, the more practices, we have one person who's graduating in December, and she has 240 different client review sheets, and she is good. She is really good. She is sought after among a few of the other students to be training with. She's that good, okay? You say, would you? She's like, yes, and she is going to be full like that as soon as she stops, as soon as she goes over and takes her test. At the end of the training, you graduate 500 hours, and Jillian will probably be having another. She has this class on the NBLEX. The NBLEX is a nationwide test that you take, and you have to pass that in order to get your license, and you're licensed through the state. You need 500 hours in the NBLEX passing in order to get your license, okay? Jillian talks about the test is talked about through the training, and we have a very high percentage rate of people passing the training, even though lots of the information that's on the NBLEX test is not necessarily information that I'm teaching you. I'm not teaching you draping, because we're all going to be enclosed. But there's certain things, and the studies, we recommend study guides and all that other kind of stuff, and nobody really, it's been quite a while since anybody hasn't passed that test.
Right, agreed.
We have a slew just now that just passed. And Jillian just did a class for them, a 1-day class on a Saturday on how to study for the NBLEX, or whatever you called it that. And one of the women in class had failed 3 times, and she went to a different school. So, okay, so we have a good record because we're also teaching you to critically think. That's the other thing. All right, then the other piece that makes our stuff special is that we have Shannon, one of the assistants from the beginning. She was in group 1, and then she graduated, and she's been assisting. I don't know where she's at with all that, but she is definitely teaching you embryology. So there is a 2-day embryology as part of Module 9, OMG, Steve. It is, I've had embryology so many times. It is, not only is it fascinating to see how it is that you developed, okay, and what happened in the developmental standpoint, and Shannon does a phenomenal job, like phenomenal, is that, but also how it relates to doing body work. There is a real deal interconnection between how I formed and how you have to interface with the system. really, because that embryological way I formed is always playing out all the time in my body. So how am I catching the wave into that, and how am I working with that? So even just the knowledge of embryology in the back of you, in you somewhere, changes how you do your work. It's really interesting. So I personally, once again, my opinion, think it's important. And it's the one module that has embryology, pregnancy, and pediatrics. So that's that module, has all that together. And then the module after that begins our organ journey. And higher organ journey and higher cranial. So with cranial, we start at the very cranial basics. And how do I even touch? How do I even begin to perceive? What do I need to do? And we start working through, okay, how do I work on bones? And then we start going deeper into how do we communicate with the fluids and the membranes and stuff like that. So it's a definite walk. But I believe you have to start out in the beginning to how do I get hands that can touch somebody else's head? Because as soon as you touch their head, you're touching their birth process. You're touching a much bigger piece than you realize. Most people are like, hey, come on there. And it's like, we have a whole thing about reverence, you know what I mean? And really, so there is that.
We work through every part of the structural body
Yes,
first,
we work through every part
and
of the
after the
structure
first, after the first.
So the first module is a module where we're definitely going over all the principles, because that's what I do, is I teach you principles, and then for the next 2 years, I'm teaching you how to apply them. Because if you know a principle more than you know exactly, if, you know, what's that old adage, teach a man to, you know, feed a man a fish and he eats for a night, teach a man to fish and he eats for his life. So we start with the principles. So the first module has the beginning 2 days, has a little more sitting down than we do the rest of the time. Okay, because we're setting principles and systems and interrelationships and all those things. And then I teach you to this day. Now I morphed this into my own kind of thing, but we teach you, there are only 2 times where we teach you how to work something bang, 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 okay? So we teach you how to work on the musculofascial system. In the very first module, we do teach you this sort of routine-ish on the body. And let me tell you something, I still do it to this day, and I learned it 26 years ago. That's when I first got introduced, 27 years ago. I first got introduced to it, but it's so powerful. It's so powerful that I want to have it done to me. Like right now, while we're talking, I want you to do that to me because it's so awesome, okay? So anyway, we teach that to you in the first module, and we start at the beginning of cranial sacral. And then I got to tell you, all bets are off, because the second module is like a shift, and you shift into how we're really working on the body. And we do foot, ankle, knee, leg, the whole leg thing, okay? And it's a very different feel, because you're going to be working with bones and relationship of bones and stuff like that, so it becomes very different. Everybody's always like, whoa! We went from wow to whoa.
Here we go.
And we're right there. And then the next module is the sacrum, working on all the stuff about the sacrum. Then we work on the next module is the hips. The 5th module is the lumbar vertebrae. We start introducing the spine. Ooh, hello, okay? And then we have the thoracic spine and the thoracic cavity, the shoulder girdle, the neck, and all the TMJ and face, the TMJ stuff comes after that. And then embryology, pediatrics, and pregnancy. And then after that is our organs. But cranials every time. And it's always going up like this. Eventually we get to working on the endocrine system itself, concussions, all the different parts of the brain. So those are all the walk that we walk through. But it takes a while. And you need the practice time in between, the study and the practice. And the other thing is, we are all here. All of us love this work so much that we are here happy to answer questions, help you out, try to whatever. You know what I'm saying?
And there is a private Facebook group for your specific group too,
Right.
that you can ask questions to. You want to host a practice session, you want to do whatever. And even like if you decide, like you can do a fake one if you want, or not at all. too.
Right.
So
'Cause you can also email.
you can also email and
You can
do all
also
of that.
email.
So
So
it's
yeah.
not completely
not
required.
mandatory.
It's not
No.
mandatory, but
It used to
it
be, but
does
it's
help
not.
if you choose to.
If you choose to, right, if you choose to, because that's a good way to interface with each other. But the other thing we'll also talk is that you'll have all of each other's emails, addresses, and all the whatever. But there are people that there's a few of them that actually post, I'm having a practice session, who wants to come, and blah blah blah, that kind of thing. So there is that private email group. Am I missing a Facebook group?
Facebook group and student clinics.
Oh,
Too.
so over the course of the 2 years and 2 months, so on Saturday, like we have our next student clinic here, it is July 13th. One always contacts Grace for the student clinic. I shouldn't have this over there. Anyway, so we have some student clinics. They're on Saturday, and the students have to do 3 of them. And I'm here mentoring, and you do 3 clients. You get a client review sheet for each of the clients. So you have to have your person fill one out after you do it. So you're here, it starts, you have to be here at 12:30, clients start coming at 1. I am here with you, and so is Grace, and sometimes there's another assistant, sometimes not, but there's the 2 of us, and you have an hour, so you're gonna do a treatment. Hello. Even if it's the treatment that you learn in the first module, which is usually what the newer people end up doing for a while, it's awesome. It's awesome. So there's that. So you come to 3 of those, which means you're going to get 9 out of those things just right up front, but you're not limited to 3. The people who are doing the best are the ones who have come to many of these and been practitioners in many of them. So there is that student clinic. And then you don't have to, if you have somebody who wants to come to the student clinic, it's $35 for the public. And they schedule through Grace, and if you have somebody who wants to come, you give them Grace's number, and Grace then makes sure that all of the number of practitioners we have has 3 people.
We make sure you're taking care of for people.
Oh, definitely.
And also, if you have never experienced this work at all before, it's a great way to experience it too in that kind of environment too.
Right. So, or anybody thinking about group 10,
Yeah.
and do those. Am I missing anything? Now the financial?
And I think financial,
Okay.
yeah.
So, everybody understands that it's always Thursday through Sunday, always 8:30 to 5:30-ish, and that, I don't mean 6:30, I mean
4:30,
4:30.
maybe.
Okay?
Just depending on how the days go.
Right, we see how the day goes. And then it's every other month. And on the piece of paper that you got is the whatever that's called.
The training schedule.
The
Yeah.
training schedule is here on the paper, and we'll definitely get you on. And I don't know if you read this, and I said this at the beginning, but these are my last 2 trainings formally this way. So this one, 9 that starts in August, 10 that starts in January, those are them in this phenomenal way, unless the sky opens up and gold shines down on me and something happens. I don't know, but right now that's where we're at, and so you have to remember that. You'll remember that. We have been the same price for the school for a long time. And what really kind of got me the other day was I have a client, and he's going to massage school, but he's an interesting guy. I'm so glad for him, because he's so excited and he's finding his way. Do you know what I'm saying? But I don't know that he would be a good fit for us. Do you know what I mean? Because he's kind of like, and I do all that stuff, but I'm not really. Really, I've got this very core, and he's going to the massage school that's
In OKC?
no.
Oh, okay.
In Sand Springs. So it's going to Sand Springs. So he's in this 500-hour whatever massage school that he's going to do, and it's $10,000 for that school, and it's $18,000 for Clary Sage for their 500-hour program. And you are cutting out with how to do muscles, which I keep telling you, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing. The education that you're getting here is so much more. It has nothing to do with massage. Nothing. You know, that is not happening here. You know, when people ask me those questions. So, there's 14 modules, right? So, there's a $1,400 deposit before you start. And then each of the modules, even including the first one, is $700 at the module. Okay? So, the entire training equals $11,200. If you get it, if you pay it off all at once in the front end, if you decide to pay the whole thing off, you get 10%. Right now, this is non-refundable right here. So this is a non-refundable deposit. 10% if you pay this thing in full before class starts. So if you pay it in full, you get 10% off, and I forget what it is.
No, it's 10 to 20 because it's not off of the 14 modules.
14.
Yeah.
So 10 to 20. This is what, after you put this down, then when you pay the whole rest of it off, you're paying 10 to 20. So that's what you pay after the deposit, and then the rest of the whole thing. Isn't that amazing that it's 10 to 20 basically, and just for basic massage, it's 10,000. It's kind of killer to me. Anyway, so we take Cash App, and we take credit card, and we take cash, and we take check. We're happy to do any of that stuff.
There's also potential scholarships on the website too, if that, and we've partnered with Meritize, which is a loan company that goes beyond just looking at your FICO score. It actually takes all of the things that you've done in your life and different pieces of it, and then there's a button on our website. You can click on that, and if you are choosing to get a loan, it's a great way to do that.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, but of course I okayed it in the beginning, and I knew more then than I know now about it, because that part's, you know. But they have a whole way they do it, and a whole way they map it out, and everything. And I'm sure you can talk to them and find all that out. Okay? And am I missing anything?
I don't think so.
Is there a date that the deposit's due?
Yes.
The start of this?
August 8th, so it's 2 weeks prior to when this thing starts. So the sooner the better, just because, well, a couple of reasons. The first one is to secure your place. We only have room for 24 total students to be a part of it,
Right.
too. And then also, if you get the deposit done, then the $700 for the first module that you have to pay is a little easier because you're not paying 21 or what 21 right within, you know, a month. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we have students too that have paid, like they'll pay $350 a month. That's how I got through school, is I just wrote a check for $350 every month, or had a little separate thing too.
Yeah.
So, however,
People do it in whatever ways they do it.
Yeah.
You know, and whatever. So, yeah, and most, they pay when they get here, usually at the modules. You know, we don't have it online, through the website. You can pay the deposit through the website, or you can just give it to us, put it through the door, whatever, that way, you can, whatever. And, but the $1,400 deposit is online. You can get it through online. The individual modules, not so much. You have to do it here in class.
right. And all of the next steps of what to do next, if you haven't already applied for the school, that would be the next step. And then, so I've got a list of all of the next steps right there. So you have an opportunity to kind of see what's next, if this is feeling like the right fit for you.
Right.
We'd love to have you.
We would. And, you know, and I cannot say that you know, when I went up to Vancouver with the French group studying, when I left, I was completely on my own. There was nothing. And you couldn't even email them and ask them a question. There was no questions, there was no nothing. And we bend over backwards to try to help you. I mean, we are here because we want everybody to be successful. I'm not like bullshitting you. I am saying that we literally, I mean, you can see me standing here and Jillian here, you know, really always wanting everybody to be successful and really make it and answer your questions and just be the best version of yourself as you can through this. So there is no, and we have people who come from out of town. I have to tell you, every training has people who come from out of town. Like Texas has just been my gift state, I swear. But we have people from Chicago. We have people who, a couple have come from Chicago, who come from Santa Fe, from St. George, Utah, from
We have someone joining us for Group 9 that's from Mesa, Arizona.
Mesa, Arizona.
She'll be traveling regularly.
We come a lot. We get a lot from Dallas and Midland, and we've had Houston, and oh my God, we had a whole group from El Paso. So don't let the distance. I mean, and of course, if you look at me, I mean, I flew up to Vancouver every 6 weeks. So I wanted to go, and I flew to England every 3 weeks. So I wanted to go where the education was, not where it was easiest for me. You know what I mean? So, but like I say, we're just really here. So we have, as you saw, there's the 2 bathrooms back there. We have a refrigerator, a water thing, a microwave. So there's a whole little kitchen. A lot of the people bring their lunch and sit here and eat. You know, a lot of people will actually go out all around here. So it's a mixed bag on what happens, you know, during each of the modules and stuff. So, is there any question or anything that I didn't cover? Anybody that I didn't cover?
No, we're good. I just answered one of the questions about
excellent.
grants or loans.
Yeah,
So
great,
we're good.
Great. And you know, there is somebody who's coming into Group 9 just won one from Massage Envy. So Massage Envy we have I don't know where it is, but we used to have a thing up there that had all of the, it's on the website obviously, where you can apply. She just won $2,500. Like friggin' apply. And I think who is it? Oh,
AMTA and ABMP both.
AMTA, American Massage Therapy Association, and ABMP, which I can't tell you what that is.
Association of Bodywork and Massage Professionals.
Okay. And they also have one. See, they're getting on the ball about this because they also want you to be members. Oh, and that's what we should also say.
Yep,
is
free
that
membership to that.
That while you're a student with us, you are under a free membership for the AMTA, and so you're covered with insurance. And then, of course, once you graduate, you join one of these programs, and that gives you insurance. Mm-hmm. Yes, and they both also have study guides. As we go along, we would tell you study guides for the ambulance with practice tests and stuff like that. So, we should tell them, Jillian, that we have a little quiz at the beginning of the modules. There's a little quiz on what was on the module before.
Yep.
Okay.
And you have to get a 70% in order to
right. Keeping the 70% keeps you, and we haven't had anybody fail.
Nope.
So we're doing okay. All right. I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Thank you guys so much. So I need you to sign up, and I'll give you everything. And I don't know how many people got online, but thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. I hope we get to see you. Bye.